first day of Hall of Flowers. Very happy to be here. So thank you, Hall of Flowers, for letting me from the New York market drop in and really hopefully learn a lot about what's happening here in California. I know there's folks here from other markets, and I know there's a little bit of a firestorm happening here, so this is a very important conversation. We have two amazing operators here that are going to give insights on what's happening and how they're surviving. So I have Amjad, Atari CEO and Creative Director for Source Cannabis. So point of view from the cultivation and brand side, and of course Angela Pai, Head of Marketing for Stateside. Woo! Coming also from 13 retail stores and 6 brands. So the point of view from retail as well as brands. So I'm really excited to have both of you here. And I'm going to jump in right now into kind of how did we get here in California? We'd love to learn from your opinion, maybe some things from the New York market, from the East Coast markets that are coming online. What are some things that we should be aware of that's happened that we should not replicate?
Gosh, way to start off Hall of Flowers with the most contentious topic, huh? I think we should take a moment to really recognize that all of us are going through a tough time right now, regardless of whether we're small operators or large-scale operators, and just say, you know, it's been a tough year so far. We've been kind of coming out of things, but at the same time, you know, when we're taking a retrospective in terms of how do we get here, I kind of see in terms of like a metaphor of we're all operating in this type of vice that's just keeps on tightening. And what do I mean by that is that since 2016, with the crippling taxation across the board, every single stage of our supply chain and operation, and also, you know, we're really operating within a state where I think 56% of all the counties in California block any type of cannabis licenses, so we're really only operating within a sliver of California. And based off of Headset, because I think most people who know me know I'm a bit of a data nerd, last year in 2021, the market only grew by a very small amount, and all of that predominantly was really driven by consumers who are already cannabis consumers consuming more cannabis rather than bringing new consumers into the industry. And I think for us, you know, really operating within this tight system have to do more to support one another to grow.
I think some of the mistakes that were made in this market, they were eager to make it, you know, a sophisticated cannabis market, and they brought out all these sophisticated rules and all these sophisticated taxes and all these sophisticated terms, which is real bullshit because it didn't make us any money. You know, I wish they did that for the black market and focused on that. So, you know, my opinion is they rolled out the system too fast. They didn't let people catch up. You know, you release 8,000 cultivation licenses. Okay, what if I'm a small outdoor grower and I have beautiful flower? Now you're not giving me time to slowly make revenue, build my farm, build my reputation, build my brand, because some dude with $100 million can do that tomorrow. So I think they messed up by leaving out the little guy by expanding the system too fast. They rolled out too many things too fast, and a lot of people couldn't handle, even like the compliance, the tax is archaic. I mean, how do you expect us to even survive? So I think they made a lot of mistakes, and that's why we're here, and I hope New York doesn't do the same.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because, you know, a lot of people have been really biting at the bit to get New York online. And, you know, you basically saying that take our time is something that, you know, we've been trying to do. So thank you for that. I'd like to also just kind of move the conversation. I know there's, instead of the gloom and doom, let's talk about how you guys are surviving the fallout right now. Like, what are some of the reasons why your companies are, you know, staying afloat right now? And Angela, start with you.
Well, with Statehouse, we're lucky enough that we have a portfolio of 6 brands across a number of form factors, and also we have our 13 retail stores between Harborside, which is, you know, the very, very first legal dispensary, as well as Urban Leaf as part of our Statehouse family. So we're able to look at both sides of the business in terms of what are consumers buying, what are they coming into the store for, how often are they coming in, which brands are doing well, while at the same time with, wearing my wholesale brand hat, what type of products and how should our brands really be relating and providing real value to consumers. So for us, having a really balanced point of view on both sides of the business as being fully vertical.
For us, we got lucky that we were a boutique company, so we never over expanded because we were focused on just quality. And if you know anything about maintaining large scale quality, it's very, very time consuming and difficult, which kind of tied our hands, but it also, we didn't overextend, so we got very blessed. So I want to say that was luck. But the things we had to do is we had to take away certain benefits, we had to take away certain positions that we had to consolidate 3 into 2, cut wages. We had to do what we had to do just to survive, because at the end of the day, if you can survive, then you have a platform to actually make tactical moves. But if you're losing money, then you're always on the run. So it just depends on where you're at. Cut the costs, cut the fat. Don't waste your time on too much stuff doesn't have a high ROI. If you can't see the ROI, don't invest it. If somebody says, I want to put this for $3,000, I wouldn't do anything until you see an actual ROI. And I think that if you're doing a brand, and I can't speak on behalf of the retailers, but I can tell you as a brand, you need to not just sell to the retailer, you're not selling them a car. This is a consumable. So it's about selling them, giving them the support they need, making sure that if your product doesn't sell, discount it. Do things like that that'll give you a better ROI where you can actually improve your brand. And if you're a retailer, I would highly look at the actual analytics. Just because a company came online with a new brand doesn't mean it's going to sell. Look at the brands that have been historically doing well and align yourself with them, because it's going to be hard to get those brands in the future because they can only make so much. So it's a double thing. Is like, as a retailer, as us as cultivators, you have to be lean. There's no way around it. The economy's bad. People don't have money. $7 gas, $60 eighths. I mean, so it better be the best. If you're going to sell $60 eighths, they better be the best. And I think that's my recommendation, is just cut costs to the bare bones until we get out of this hurricane that we're in right now.
For sure. And it's the same for larger operators, like with us in terms of trimming fat, being super lean. We're only 12 months into our integration as Statehouse, bringing together 4 companies. So really looking at where the duplicity and trying to be as streamlined as we can. So it's all the way across the board.
Absolutely, yeah.
So we're actually 3 Asians on this panel. So so of course we prepped and planned before this.
Well, you guys are East Asian. I'm Middle East Asian. So.
You're welcome to the party.
Thank you.
So I think during our conversations, there was some, you guys got really deep in terms of sharing some of the strategies that you've been implementing across some very important points in terms of making sure that your business is going to survive this. So I'd like to kind of dig into some of those categories that we talked about.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, and make this a very impactful conversation, because a lot of times people talk these high-level things, and we want the audience to actually have things that you can go and research and go deeper into. So the first one, I think that's really important across any type of industry is, how are you getting new customers? How are you expanding your reach into your market?
Yeah. Well, basically, I'll take this one head on, is you have to know when. Okay, the thing that everybody has simplified this cannabis space, and what I would see is somebody would come in and put $30 million because his nephew knew how to grow in the university closet, right? We know that, right? And we know the person that would come in from a superior company, Coca-Cola, whatever, and say, I'm gonna brand the fucking hell out of this company, but the weed sucks, right? It looks good, you can buy it. So we have that like insult, literally insult after insult for people that have been putting in the grind. I've been selling weed since 1996. I know weed. I used to buy from my store. I've met thousands of growers. I know weed. You can't come from somewhere in a 4-year degree from a university and try to tell me about cannabis. You're just not going to, You're not. I mean, it's simple. It's just simple statistics. I can't be a surgeon. Sorry. I can't be a pilot tomorrow. I could put in the time, but if I'm coming in with a shit ton of money and say I'm gonna be a great surgeon, I'm gonna kill a lot of people. And the thing is that's what they came in here. The people lost shit tons of money. People lost jobs. People lost opportunities because these people came in and wiped out small people, and then they didn't survive. And somebody bigger is gonna come clean up that mess. And that's because they never had their North Star when they started their brand. So when we started Source, we already knew what we were gonna do. We were doing it since 2009. Sorry if I speak fast, but I'm passionate about this. It's a problem because, I give you an example, for a whole month, we didn't have good quality cannabis. And as you know, me and my business partner, we inspect the cannabis that goes into our product every week. And we do that because I wanna smoke it, you know? And if you're in the cannabis game just for money, it's gonna kick you out. It's just, it's that game. And I see so many fools lose such wealth into this game. We basically did not sell cannabis for a whole month. Our buyers were going crazy, and our salespeople were saying that we looked unreliable. And our position was, at that time, because the minimum wage was $12 an hour, which is still shit right now, but anyway, at $12 an hour, if somebody went and spent $60 on an eighth, and they were disappointed, how would they feel? That person's waiting. They may buy some cheap stuff, but they may weigh that for the Super Bowl, some game, or whatever, right? A night out, and I disappoint them. And my colleagues didn't do what I did, and they lost their brand. And for a whole month, we didn't provide anybody anything because we didn't have the quality to go in there. After a month, we brought it back out. And if you're not willing to do that, sacrifice the short term for the long term, you won't get a beachfront. And if you don't have a beachfront, you're not gonna be able to weather the storm, and you're gonna get ejected from this market. So know your North Star, know what you want before you get in the game. Otherwise, you have no direction, honestly.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. So if you think about a lot of brands come in, and you know, all of us who've come to Hall of Flowers over the course of the years, you've seen a lot of fancy packaging, you've seen a lot of great expensive booths, and you know, half of them aren't here anymore, right? I remember my very first Hall of Flowers, there was this one brand that came in with a $100,000 booth display, and I was like, wow, you know, that's crazy. And you're right. You know, overall, in terms of your consumer experience, you might have the best packaging, you might have the most premium placement in the store, and you're driving that business. But ultimately, what that consumer is smoking and consuming, if it's not good product, you're not going to create that level of loyalty, and you're basically cheating them.
You're literally stealing from them.
Yeah, and you're going to disappoint them because you know they're the ones who are supporting the retailers, and the retailers have to support the brands, and the brands need to stand behind the integrity.
And then how?
Yep, absolutely.
And how are you educating? Like, how are you educating the bud tenders? How are you educating consumers about your brand? Like, I know you've been a marketer. This woman is amazing. She's been a marketer for many decades.
She's known as the brand whisperer, by
Yeah.
the way, guys. So,
So,
if you have an idea.
what are some of the things that you're bringing into from other industries, Angela, that you've been implementing that's been successful for brand education?
Well, anybody who's worked with me knows that the first question I always ask is, who are we designing for? You have to understand who your consumer is, who your target audience is, who you're serving. If you understand who you're serving and you're designing for, okay, this person has these types of needs, this person has these types of behaviors and what they're looking for, then you can actually create something that's relevant. Because you're going to put all this money behind something that may not be relevant. We're not going to see them after this next show or whatever happens. Having had the benefit of coming into the industry through brands like Papa & Barkley and Canacraft, where we are education first, where we are educating consumers, we're educating bud tenders, we're sampling with bud tenders, we're creating experiences where they feel a connection to the brand and that the companies standing behind these brands mean something and are in there for the long game. We're not coming in, making a killing, and seeing you later.
That's right. And I know Papa Barkley has like amazing reputation. I use it. I recommend it. And it's because I know that it's the real deal. I don't know much about CBDs and all that stuff. I know they're legit. So I don't have to necessarily, I'm not an expert in that brand, but people I trust, the bud tenders, tell me that that's good and they've tried it. So that's the thing, is that, you know, you really have to focus on the bud tender, but if your product isn't up to par, that could be your worst enemy too. So just by really knowing like the consumer and the bud tender education is, we can do sometimes education, but what we've seen, and I'm not criticizing it and I have no judgment on it, but what we've seen is the bigger brands throw the best parties. So like I was talking to a colleague of mine who has a very successful store, and they have their own pre-roll line and they sell a ton of Jeters, for example. And I said to her, why do they buy it? Why do they buy it? She's like, well, the bud tenders recommend it. Well, why do the bud tenders recommend it? Because they love to go to the educational events. I said, they like education that much? She's like, no. They love the parties and the gifts and all that. So those people can spend a lot, but you can do your own thing. And what I recommend is for people to talk to their salespeople, and your salesperson shouldn't be a salesperson only. Mm-hmm. If they don't have a relationship with your buyer, you will always have problems. So right now, for example, some of our best clients owe us a lot of money, but we work with them. You know, let's see how we can work together to get out of this, as opposed to not having a relationship and cutting them off. So we've been blessed in that sense, is making sure that we have a relationship with the people that we sell to, as opposed to just being so transactional that we're just another brand.
Well, I think everybody knows that there are AR issues within our industry, and we all have to help each other out. You know, if your product's not going to be on shelf, it's not going to create any value, it's not going to create any revenue, and your retail partners are not going to, you know, have the inventory that their customers want as well. So it has to be a give and take and really, really balance that out.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know,
As
you really
a
understand
as a user experience designer, you're both speaking my love language, which is know your customer and know your salespeople, know your bud tenders, and create conversations around how they learn and how they share. One thing that I know we've been very limited in the cannabis industry is marketing and advertising. Really quickly, if you guys stay towards the end of this the end of this panel, we have a pretty big announcement regarding opening channels for advertising for cannabis. But I would love to, also learn any strategies that you have been maneuvering around creatively to get your, brands and retail stores out there into more mainstream?
I haven't found a lot of success with the marketing tools and everything that are available to the cannabis space because they're not developed yet, and we don't really know the ROI. We don't know if people are just buying the cheapest product out there. The market isn't big enough for a boutique company like us. The market isn't big enough to really go full board marketing and make it a household name. And it's not developed yet. It's going, the consolidation is going in that direction. And of course, the more that there's consolidation, you have bigger companies with bigger budget dollars, and therefore a lot of the mainstream media will start opening up avenues. But again, it doesn't help the people now that might have needed, like for example, our Instagram is shadow banned. I think that if they would stop that bullshit. Are you serious? You're literally in 2022 shadow ban cannabis brands? Really? So I think these are the things that still aren't available for us, like that we would love to use. And so most of our investment dollar goes straight to the store, and not really focus on outside marketing so much, because the market's still, like there's brands coming online tomorrow. And when all these brands are coming online, they confuse the consumer. Because you'll see 5 brands made from the same exact cultivation, with the same genetics. One's called Bobby, one's called Susie, one's called Henry, it's all the same fucking shit. They couldn't tell me what's inside of it. They couldn't tell me. None of the CEOs, I've asked CEOs, how many lights do you have? What do you mean, you're cultivating, you have a brand, you don't know, because you're not even making it. So I think the white labeling game, it's just gonna drop the prices to the low. There's no point to do white label. I mean, if you're sitting there want to do a brand of white label cannabis, get in line with the other 150 people that are doing it and aren't selling shit. That's the truth. If you look at it, it's all going to the top and the bottom. And the bottom is all big companies that can just afford to lose money, lose $200 a pound, go ahead,
I've been lucky enough to work with companies that have invested behind marketing and have put funds towards trying different ways. So whether it was at Papa Barkley, where we are, educating the consumers, literally driving them and busing them into a dispensary and hand-holding that relationship. I think at the height of one of the initiatives, we drove 100 seniors to a dispensary in the desert. Now, the level of loyalty and the level of marketing tactics that you have to bring into bear to make that happen is not like a one-off shot. It has to be sustainable. It's over time. It's building a relationship with the retailer. It's educating consumer beforehand, and it's educating the bud tenders so that when they're coming in, you want to be the brand and the products that bud tenders buy for themselves and for their family. If you've got that level of loyalty and you've been able to see that kind of value, one of the things that kind of look at is, okay, you're asking someone to buy something that's the value of the bag of groceries that they're not going to buy. So just make sure you're creating really great products and really great brands.
A value. I mean, $60 could be a value product if it's a good product.
Agreed. And then one thing that I come from the tech industry, so data is always king, and we've talked about data. I know you're a big fan of data and being able to use data in a way that is helpful in making like strategic decisions on growing the business. Like, what are some things that you've been looking into that have been helpful? And then also for any tech people out there that are doing software, I'd love for both of you to talk about the data that's missing that you should be building into your software. That would be helpful too.
So I think we're going to get in trouble for this one. Having been on the brand side for about 4 years in cannabis, as brands, you don't get a lot of data from retailers, right? You want to know not just your velocity of sell-through. You want some information in terms of what kind of consumers are coming in to buy your products and brands so that you can actually create campaigns that are relevant to that consumer segment. And now that I'm also on the retailer side, and I think that's a huge value with data. As a retailer, we're sitting on 800,000 first-party data information in our database that we have not mined, and it's an incredible, valuable set of information about people who've been buying and consuming cannabis. So let's say we work with brands where we can actually share a certain amount of information and say, oh, these are the people who are coming in and actually buying your brand more than 2 to 3 times. These are the people who you need to be creating programs with. So when you're investing in brand activations at the store and you're creating materials, let's make sure these messages tap into a relevance that they can resonate with so that their marketing dollars are spent more wisely. And I think that's where, wearing my retailer hat, I would see us working in collaboration with brands with more data insights.
Yeah, I think what we're doing right now is just using basic data. We do different companies, I don't have to name them, that we use for data, but for us, what we've noticed is like we want to look at trends. For example, like during the summer, people want more sativas. Okay, so we know that we gotta go from 15% to 35% during the summer of sativas. We know that this region likes OGs more than this region. This region likes darks and purples. This store's a rosin store. So you start really have to taking the data and realizing what regions you do what stores do well, and then start doing that template so you can curate the menu for your customer as opposed to letting them guess, because they may change buyers. You already have the data that what does well in their store. You say, hey man, the sativas are doing really well in your store. I'd like to reorder this. Oh, it's slowed down, so I'm gonna add this. I think that data for us is very useful because now we are investing in the store. The other thing we started doing also, besides data, is also like talking to the store and put merchandising for them in the store to help them sell it. And it is extremely hard. What Angela's talking about is traditionally buyers never shared information because it was secretive. And those people had control for a long time. Now you have people that have data, but they just don't want to deal with it because it's too much work. So you're a buyer, you're like, I'm not gonna, Angela wants to know, I don't care, it doesn't mean, I'm not gonna work an extra 2 hours to give her what she wants. And the systems aren't in place to share that information anyway. The best they could do is say, hey, this is what I sold this day, that day, you have to put the data together. So we're gonna get there, it's gonna get sophisticated, but I think that in California, we think that the rest of the country is like this. and I traveled, and I saw stuff that I haven't seen, like it reminds me of the 90s. Or I went to a grow, I couldn't believe it. They had 5 lights in a 20-foot container, and they were single-ended bulbs. If you guys know what I'm talking about, you know what I mean? Like single-ended bulbs, and I'm looking at them, and they're like, "Yeah, we're not doing too well," and I'm like, "Oh, I wonder why," I could share dozens of stories of this where, what's that $30 million grower? They bring a buddy of mine who's a legacy grower. He looks at them, he's like, it won't work because these scientists want to feed the plants from the bottom. And you can't do that with hydro, you gotta feed them from the top. So there goes $20 million. So you just see this all the time, and we think like the rest of the world is very sophisticated like California. There are more sophisticated growers in California than you'll ever see anywhere else. You'll see some in Arizona, you'll see them in others, and you'll see some built out ones, but nobody knows how to use them. It's like building a spaceship with no astronauts, And that's what's going across the country. And yeah, we're blessed to be in California, but I'm telling you, you think I'm joking. I'm dead. I know. I'm dead serious, bro. It's crazy. Like I tell people I can build a hospital, but if I don't have doctors, what the fuck do I have? A hotel, really. So the thing is, I try to tell people it's not that easy. And you see all these big companies coming in and throwing this money and building shit. And so, yeah, data will start letting us know, hey, that doesn't work, that won't work. You know what, you could private label Brad Pitt, he ain't gonna sell weed. Weed is not like that. Jay-Z couldn't sell weed. If Jay-Z can't sell weed, who can?
Well, hopefully
Really?
we are gonna sell the weed, right?
Uh-huh. I'm confident we can outsell Jay-Z's brand because he's not involved. Yeah. So to be honest with you, it's a unique market. We really don't have all the data. As a matter of fact, just to tell you the truth, up to a year and a half ago, I was paying people in cash $2 million a month. So half my time as a CEO was counting fucking cash because they wouldn't let me put my money in a bank. So, you got to understand the game has changed, but it's still not even close to developed. And we need to let this meal cook properly before we try to, expand it too fast.
Yeah.
No, I totally agree with everything that you're saying, and again, learnings for us who've been, prepping for the New York market. I really want to kind of go back to what you talked about, which is, having more of an abundance mindset instead of a scarcity mindset. And a friend named Lauren gave me a really great analogy yesterday when we met, and she was talking about, with boats, when a storm comes, instead of each boat for themselves, they get together, and being together prevents boats from capsizing, from flipping over. So I would love to kind of hear your thoughts on how can California operators work together. There's a lot of, I know during these times of scarcity, it's really easy to fall into the scarcity mindset for it's like me and mine only. So what are some of the things that you're looking forward to, or programs that you're implementing to be able to work together to make sure that the good people band together and move forward?
For sure. One of the programs that we're working on the store side is really working with craft growers, since they have less of the resources, but they've been kind of pushed out in a lot of stores because they just haven't had the presence. So, with our stores, we're going to be working with craft growers to amplify and actually give them a proper placement within our stores and support them for visibility. We want to have the complexity of strains, and so that we don't become Chiquita Banana, where we kind of down to ISH. We want the flavors. We want to be able to educate. And so supporting the smaller craft growers is really going to be one step, and then we'll be able to make announcements in terms of how much more sophisticated we can work with them overall in terms of their marketing, their amplification, education, and bringing them into more stores.
I love that. I love that. Bringing it back to the OG and giving honor and respect to what actually brought all of us here to begin with.
Yeah, we're indoor farmers, but if anybody knows anything about outdoor farming, it's the best. But people don't talk about that. So when you get the best of the best of the best outdoor, I love my smoke, but I'll put it down and smoke outdoor when it's done right. When it's done right, you get the full spectrum. Unfortunately, with the way California did things, we wiped out generations of outdoor growers who could grow better than any of these other growers on small scale. And you literally want that. You want that small winery. You want that. So, because you don't want, if you want just cannabis to be like alcohol, get grain alcohol, go get just distilled, whatever, distillate, just call it a day. But we're losing so much. And I think that what bothers people like me that have been in it such a long game, and I have some friends here too that we're on the same page. It basically is just a shame that there's no honor. Like, we always pay our respect to the Emerald Triangle and all. That wasn't for them, we wouldn't be here.
Agreed.
When we became indoor growers, guys, our goal was to hide so that we could outgrow the system. So when we started, there was no competition. So what you're talking about is we already did that when nobody did that, because we had to. We had to, I'd keep my genetics with him, her, because if I got busted, I could restart. And you know what? They'd lend me the money and help me build it. We would do that for each other. Now, I'm not a cultivator, and I give respect to them, but I know the game. And that's how they did it, is they all helped each other in times of stress to make sure that we outgrew the system. And you have a lot of these brands, actually, that are trying to pass bills or to stop people from growing, which we actually believe the opposite. You should grow at home. We want you to grow at home. And then grow our genetics. We'll give them to you, grow them. And if you like it, you could smoke some of our stuff the way we grew it. But we'll help you. This is what brands should be doing, is to really outgrow the system. And I think that's one way you kind of work together. Also, we deal with a lot of retailers. One of the brands that we deal with is a retailer named Herba. They're like the Erewhon of cannabis, But they know their customer. They're hitting it on the nail. They always got lines. I mean, they're easy to deal with. So from my salespeople to me, I know the owner, his name is Devin. I know him. We basically hang out. They got it from A to Z. So they're doing very well. And I see people like that. And I see the Catalyst CEO, the way he does it. I think they're on point. They're fighting back in their own way. Yeah, they're fighting back in their own way by saying, we don't want this big corporate company that doesn't know anything. And it's not even good for the consumer when a company has so much money that they're forcing their brand of shitty flower in the retailers. Yep. Where when you have a relationship with Source and let's say Herba, where we basically our goal is the same, which is to make the consumer have an honest, valuable experience in getting the cleanest cannabis out there. And and they have great outdoor too, by the way. And I'm just saying is that we need to stop thinking about in our mind, outdoors, these massive farms. No. They're small families, and it would be great for them to take $300,000 a year. They'd be happy, and they'd bring you the best flower that you could ever smoke, but it never even gets that far. Even till now, the good outdoor cannabis never leaves that area, the great. So I think that we need to not lose that legacy, bring that back somehow. And we are at Source thinking to basically start doing really small batches when we have the time and access of really high-end small batch grows. And it's not going to be cheap, but it's going to be outdoor. It's going to be full spectrum. So I can't wait.
I would love to invite you to teach us in New York about outdoor. Everything right now in New York is about, it has to be indoor, it has to be fire, it has to be X, Y, and Z. And I don't think the potency of THC is an indicator of actual quality.
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. Or smoking experience, for sure.
I would love a 10% THC, like I
too.
used to smoke back in the day, where I can function. I feel like everyone is growing from medical grade, even though it's for adult use. So I would love to invite you, both of you, to come to New York. And
I'm going to give you some of the genetics we just, what I smoke, not what I sell. What I sell, I love. I smoke it. But what I smoke on a regular, 18% THC. And we only grow it for me and my business partner, because I can't sell it. We grow it for our friends. We only grow it for our close friends. It's medicinal. It's really medicinal, which is what I love about it. I just smoked some before I got on stage. Do I seem nervous? You know what I mean? It's fucking phenomenal. It's very calming, and more people should know about it.
Yeah. One of the things that I think we haven't touched on so far is relationships. That's something that I've really learned coming into the industry, is how important are relationships. The
100%.
relationships and the bonds that we have for each other to support us through the challenging times, and the relationships that our teams have with buyers, the relationship with store owners, really understanding what each one of us are going through. And when we talk about how it's a real boots on the ground kind of business, ultimately it's about relationship and how we can support one another.
100%, and that's my view on our New York market. There's a lot of kind of like, New York pride, which is keep everyone out, but there's a little bit of that, but it's also important to bring the experts from other markets to come in. So I am always proposing like co-roles. So you have someone who is an expert in cannabis, you have someone who's an expert in New York, and being able to, collaborate and think in a way that encompasses both worlds, I think is going to be really important. A lot of the programming, so I'm actually the co-founder of On the Revel. We do a lot of events in New York. We've been doing it for 6 years. Thank you. And we've been talking a lot about predatory practices that are coming into New York. And I think, I'd also like to share a couple things, some stories that I've heard about, things that have been happening with New York, as a lot of California operators are thinking about expanding into New York. So a couple myth busters I'd like to just talk about really quickly. One, that there's licenses right now. So that there's licenses right
in
now.
New York.
I heard a couple people say, "Oh, I have a dispensary in Harlem." That is not the case. We do not have any retail licenses. We don't even have regulations yet for any of the license types. We do have 2 conditional licenses. One is for cultivation. So anybody who is a hemp grower who had proved that they had brought product to market for 2 years applied for a hemp license. So that way we could have flower in the ground, or plants in the ground, to harvest this year. We just started harvesting. The second one, you might have heard, is the card license. It's a conditional license type for anyone who has been arrested or convicted for a cannabis offense in New York State. So that has been really great for justice impacted. The applications closed the 25th of September, so we're still waiting for that. So if anyone is trying to do business with New York, I please advise you to do your due diligence. Another thing that I've heard is like, oh, I'm on multiple licenses in New York. With how it is structured right now, that is not possible. If you're on one cap table, you will be tied to that one cap table. So before you get into bed with anyone, please just know that you are tied to that one person. So please, again, do your due diligence before you get married. And that's it. But I'd love to open up the floor. We have 2 beautiful brains up here. So if anybody has any questions, I'd love to.
Hey folks, how's it going? Zach Darling with Cannacraft. Hey, really appreciate what you said about Outdoor Flower. Our Farmer and the Felon brand won best of show for Emerald Cup this year, and it's a sun-grown brand. And I think we're really coming into the time of sun-grown outdoor flower really getting its day. I got a question for you, Angela. Now that you're finally have a retail hat to wear, and you have this 800,000 consumer database that you're getting ready to mine, have you noticed any kind of disparate difference in the data that you're getting from like BDS and Headset and New Frontier versus what you're actually getting boots on the ground from the actual store data? Is there a major difference there, and how valuable and on point is some of these data mining services that us brands are so addicted to using?
Wow, I think we can do a full panel on data sets and the various data companies that are available in terms of providing for us. I mean, obviously, there are different methodologies between what Headset or BDS or Pistol, Hoodie are able to provide for us, and how does that compare to our own, retail POS data? No one system is perfect, so I would say count your cases. Be old-fashioned, if it's moving, it's moving, right? And then when you're designing your programs, figure out what are your sell-in activity as well as your sell-through activity in terms of driving consumers to the store. So, we use both. And for me, the timeliness is the most critical thing. timeliness, and also does that platform actually reset their data and have to recalibrate so that, oh my gosh, the data that I got last month from 2 months ago, is that still valid for me today? Because we're all making timely decisions on a daily basis. And second, the data that I reported to our leadership, was that setback because the company felt that the validity of their information was not accurate, because we don't want to tell anything that it's not true, and we don't want to be in a position where we have to eat our words.
Okay, this will be our last one, and then we will have that announcement.
It's always tough to be in front of the announcement. So we started in 1996 in the state of California, and if you haven't seen it, everybody please go watch An American Pot Story and look at what Dale and Richard Lee put their life and their money on the line, and you should watch that. So Angela, quick question. You're one of, if not the biggest player in the state of California. In the state of California, the UC system has made it very clear that they will become the leader, of course, behind Israel. Some of the work going on at the Center for Medicinal Cannabis Research at UCSD, Ziva Cooper's work with opiate use disorder at UCLA is phenomenal. They're getting funding from private high net worth individuals as well as the NIH. The question begs, in their preclinical work, they're looking for companies to actually create products around that work. Are you guys leaning into that? Because that is a diversification of revenue that is going to drive this state, and it will eventually be paid for by insurance. Hospitals can now make recommendations, but they can't prescribe it.
Yep.
That is a wonderful revenue diversification. Are you guys looking at that?
I love the therapeutics category, having worked on brands like Care by Design and Pablo and Barkley, and in both companies and brands, we did create programs that had a clinical application and a research application. So I do feel that that's really important in terms of normalizing the use of cannabis in everyday life, and to help us with the top 3 needs: pain, anxiety, and sleep, across any type of form factor. So yes, it's the intention that we will continue to participate in that. I've been at Statehouse for a little over 3 months now. We don't have a wellness brand within our portfolio, but it is important to support these types of studies so that cannabis becomes entrenched and integrated as part of everyday lifestyle.
I'd love to give a round of applause to both Angela and Amjad for this opportunity to listen and learn with you both. Thank you. I wanted to quickly call up and do this announcement that would be beneficial for both of your organizations as well. So George Sonali is one of my co-founders of the Cannabis Media Council. And we also have Gabe Chavez from Hearst Media, head of marketing for Hearst Media.
Hi. Hi. So Lulu, myself, and a woman named Amy Dennison, who has long worked in digital marketing alongside many member partner brands, many of which I see in the room. We're bringing together a coalition of the industry to seek to end the media moratorium against this plant. So I think the synonymous issue that we all have is lack of access to breaking through the mainstream to find new customers for our products. All of us have had our Instagram accounts shadow banned. We are not promising that we're gonna change things immediately. This is gonna be a long journey. But the hope is that we can bridge small, medium, large companies, single state operators, multi-state operators, ancillary technology, and endeavoring to at least have a communication with Meta and Google and Comcast and all of the big companies to try and slowly chip away at this moratorium. And we're very happy that Hearst has come on board. So they have had a history of prohibition, but they are now the largest media conglomerate in the world that is accepting cannabis forward advertising. And we will be launching a campaign on their channels, which we're super, super excited about in Q4. So yeah, thanks, Gabe, for engaging with us.
My pleasure, my pleasure. And really just to give you some context of what the audience looks like, right? As the evolution around cannabis, myself, I've been a personal user for years, decades, right? And kind of bringing that experience and digital marketing with my background over the last 22 plus years and the last 15 or so, really focused on cannabis, working with different publications, now leveraging the Hearst brand with Hearst Bay Area, the Green State publication, print publication, and also SF Gate. We've been investing in this industry for quite some time, more recently bringing on a cannabis editor to write specific content about, reversing the stigma around cannabis, making sure that we get the proper information to the audience. When we talk about data, which I think is so important, we've been mining our own users for the last 5 years, understanding that the cookie apocalypse is coming and third-party data is moving away, right? So we now have over 1 million users across our Hearst network, which includes Hearst Newspaper, Hearst Magazine, and Hearst TV, to really hone in on those particular segments to open up for the cannabis industry to really target that audience, right? Myself, being an e-commerce marketer, can now take what I've applied over the last 20 years for these really top brands and bring it down to the cannabis industry. And there are some advanced technologies out there that we can leverage that first-party data using your POS system, using that CRM to match back and target specific audience across our network, across those 3 different divisions, is really I think is going to be a game changer for sure. And then having specific publication content around cannabis, leveraging the Green State, which has been one of the longest standing news publications, both print and digital. It's not only Bay Area focused, but also has a national play. And then leveraging SF Gate, right, which we know has a really large audience. It's been around since 1994. The domain authority is outstanding. And you can really leverage different types of advertising mediums and ad placements to, successfully brand your overall companies and product.
Yeah, so call to action. Everybody take out their phones and send a little email to hi@cannabismediacouncil.com. We will share more information. Again, member base is totally wide open. If you're endeavoring to be a regulated legal operator in this space, we welcome you. We will be fundraising, so we're hoping the bigger companies can help lift all boats. And we will be launching an amazing ad campaign coming soon on the Hertz channels. I also have a QR code if anybody wants to scan it.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for your time today, and have a beautiful conference.